as we come to the end of our 411, it's now very important to answer this question: when? When will I be his ambassador? When will I go to people who are far from God that I know? When will I share the gospel with them? I think a great way to answer that question, it can be discovered in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 through 17. Listen to what it says. Pay careful attention then to how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time, because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. For us to really pay attention to what we're doing with our lives, we have to have a sense of urgency for doing the Lord's will, for doing the Lord's work, the work of reconciliation, the work of being his ambassador. This means we have to make the most of the time that we have in this world, actively being disciples who help make more disciples of Jesus Christ every single day. To do this, we have to simply count the cost. So I want you on your piece of paper, on the back of that paper, I want you to write these 4 letters down. C-O-S-T. And we're going to have 4 blanks that we fill in. And I want us to think about, how can we count the cost? Well, the way that we count the cost, according to this passage, is we make the most of the time. We use our time to be disciples who help make more disciples. So to use our time and count the cost, we first start by connecting. Write this word in, connect. And as you're writing the word in for connect, simply draw a picture of somebody praying. Because what you're doing, you're connecting with Jesus on behalf of others. And specifically, you're praying for those 10 for 10 every single day. So my question for us is this: when? When will we do this? Be very specific. Will you do it in the morning, maybe part of your daily devotions? Will you do it as part of your lunchtime, taking 10 minutes to pray for these 10 people? Maybe you'll do it in the evening, praying with your spouse. When will you do that? We're going to skip the letter O and come back to it at the end. So jump down to the S and write this down. Share. You're answering the question, when will you share? What are you sharing? Well, you're sharing my story. You remember that one word described before and how you came to Christ, and that word that describes what life is like now? But ultimately, you're sharing the gospel and possibly using the 3 circles to help share the truth of who Jesus is and what it means to follow him. We're trying to answer in this part, when will you do that? And be specific. But I also want you to write down who. Because here's what happens. When you are praying, connecting with Jesus on behalf of other people, many times the Holy Spirit will say, I want you to go to that person on your list. And it might be, I want you to go this Wednesday, or I want you to go by this Friday. Be very specific. The T stands for this: train. And first, what are we training? Well, these very things that we've been talking about in the 411. Why do we make disciples? We're his ambassadors. Who do we go to? People that we already know. Our relational map. What do we say to them? Ways to share the gospel. We need to share this with other people. Why? Because if statistics are true that 98% of people who profess to be Christians never share the gospel, could it be because they simply have never been trained in the 411? So again, you're trying to answer this question. When will you do this? Be specific. But who will you do this with? Who are some people that you already know? Maybe existing fellow followers of Christ that you can train in the simplicity of being a disciple that makes more disciples. Now, we come back to the last thing, the O. O stands for obey. And I leave this for the very last because it's a simple question, but one that really takes a heart evaluation to answer. When will you obey Jesus? When will you be his ambassador that helps reconcile the world to him? When will you do this? I've heard it said delayed obedience is the same as disobedience. So let's no longer disobey. Let us all take seriously that he has called us And he has people that he wants us to go to. And he's even given us a way to share the gospel with others. When will you obey him? This is what I want to ask you to do at the end of this video. In a moment, I want you to pause it. And the first thing I want you to do is pray. Pray and ask God sincerely, Lord, what do you want me to do? And whatever he tells you to do, simply obey. But secondly, would you take a moment just to pray for people that are watching this video? That all of us will be obedient to be everyday disciple makers. And after you've prayed, take time to practice this over and over and over again. For what reason? So that not only do you know how to be a disciple that makes more disciples every day, but also so you can train other people. Thanks for joining us on this video.